This is a story time about the time I dated the school shooter. This might be a long story, so please bear with me. Before you form any opinions on anyone in the story, please wait all the way until the end. Trust me, you're gonna want to listen to this story time. There was this boy who went to my school and he was really shy and he got bullied a lot. He got bullied a lot because he was a lot more feminine than other guys. And I'm just the type of person to give people the benefit of the doubt, so I went ahead and started talking to him more to see the type of person that he actually was. He didn't sit with anybody during lunch, so one day I went up to him and I sat down right next to him and I started talking to him. Immediately, I loved this boy, everything about him. He was extremely sweet and considerate and understanding, and I knew that if other people took the time to get to know him, they would like him too. So we exchanged numbers and we started to FaceTime a lot. As we started to FaceTime more, I started to notice things that were a little off about him. Every single conversation that we had, he would always have to bring up about how much he hated this one boy in his tech class and how he would shoot up the school just to get rid of him, like for part 2. This is part 2 about how I dated the school shooter. So let me backtrack a little bit from part 1. We exchanged numbers, we started to make plans to hang out outside of school, and we just started talking more outside of school, and eventually we started dating. He never really talked about this guy in his tech class until we started dating. Keep that in mind. For some reason, that guy in his tech class really bothered him. Like I said, he started talking about how he would shoot up the school just to get rid of this guy. At first, I thought it was just a joke and he was just saying that, until he kept saying it. He started being so serious about it and he started planning it out and exactly what he would do when he did it. That started to scare me, and so I decided that I was going to record one of these conversations, just in case. During that conversation, he said he planned to shoot up the school the next day. He said, in these exact words, "Fuck it, you know what? I'm just gonna do it tomorrow." Then he tells me to not come to school the next day. That's when I know that he was actually being serious. Immediately after, I started writing up an email to the school, like for part 3. This is going to be part 3 of the time I dated the school shooter. So his exact plan was to use this new gun that his dad had just recently bought. And his exact goal was to get rid of that guy in his tech class. And his tech class was in the beginning of the school day. So after I wrote that email to the school about his plan and inserted the recording that I secretly took of him admitting to it, I realized that I had sent that email at around 12:05 a.m. Most of the time, the teachers don't ever email you back unless the school day has already started. That morning, for some reason, everything in my gut was telling me I sent the email too late. They're not going to open it in time. They're not going to see it in time. My mom just thought that I was sick that day, so I told her that I was going to take a walk around the neighborhood. And I totally forgot to mention that he lived in my neighborhood. I told my mom I was going on a walk, but I was actually going to his house to tell his parents. By the time I got there, his mom told me that the dad is driving him to school. I told her his plan, let her listen to the recording. So she checked where the dad put the gun and it was not there. She called the dad to tell him to check his bag. The dad said he had already dropped him off at school and he was halfway home. His tech class was first period, like for part 4. This is going to be part 4 of the time I dated the school shooter. So let me do a little recap. So like I said, I ran to his house that morning to try to tell his parents his plan about shooting up the school, and I showed them the recording for proof. I was only able to tell the mom his plan because the dad had already taken him to school. She checked where this new gun he was planning on using was supposed to be and it wasn't there. Then when she called the dad to tell him to check their son's bag, the dad said, 1, the gun should still be there because he hadn't touched it since he put it away, and 2, he had already dropped him off at school and he was halfway home. I didn't even tell my mama where I was going. I hopped in the car with my boyfriend's mom and we zoomed. The dad had taken a U-turn and he was speeding towards the school too. At this point, first period was about to start in 5 minutes. It was us against time. We were passing cars, running red lights. When we got to the school, the mom barely parked the car. The dad was already in there, I'm pretty sure. But as we were running inside, the dad was coming out with my boyfriend. This is what happened after, like for part 5. This is going to be part 5 about the time I dated the school shooter. Like I said, my boyfriend's parents and I sped to the school and got there in time to stop him from carrying out his plan of shooting the school. I'm guessing the dad told them that there was like an emergency dentist appointment or something. Once they got in the car, the dad made my boyfriend open his bag, and there was the gun. Child, the way my heart... You hear that? That's how fast my heart was beating at the time. It was so hard to believe that he actually brought that gun to school, like he was actually going to carry out that plan. But from what I've seen, he was just so sweet and just does not seem like that type of guy at all. Mind you, his family was a very respected family in our neighborhood. They were super sweet, everybody loved them, they just knew that the son was antisocial. After all this happened, I did not tell anybody about this, like I'm a real bitch. I did not tell my best friends, I didn't tell my parents, I didn't tell nobody. Some time had passed and I hadn't talked to him, he wasn't coming to school, and I was actually blocked on all socials. Even his parents blocked me. Went to his house multiple times, knocked on the door, nobody answered. Eventually someone told me that they moved, but I still had some unfinished business, like for part 6. So this is gonna be me finishing the unfinished business. Like I said, him and his family moved. They didn't tell anybody anything. They just packed their stuff and they left. Everyone in the neighborhood was so confused. But I kept my mouth shut. Like I said, I'm a real bitch. I needed to find the answers as to why why did he want to get rid of that tech guy so bad? Well. So I went to tech first period just to see who was all in the classroom. I didn't actually go in the classroom, I was just standing outside the classroom. Based on where my ex was saying that he sat in the room, I figured out who the tech guy was. As soon as the bell rang for first period to be over, I ran to that tech class. I stopped that guy that my boyfriend was talking about. I told him everything. And that is when he admitted to me that one day, they were hanging out. Mind you, this boy is a senior, my ex was a sophomore. They hooked up, but my ex was ashamed of what he did, so he threatened to say that he was taken advantage of. That boy said, well, I'm gonna tell people the truth then if you're gonna do that. So basically, my ex was embarrassed of his sexuality. Guessing after we started dating, he started to get super ashamed of what he did. And that's why he decided to shoot up the school. This is gonna be a story time of how I almost drowned someone's baby. Y'all, I cannot sleep at night because of this. I cannot believe that I did this to someone's child. Now let me go ahead and explain myself. So I was babysitting for this one rich ass family. What's so amazing about it was the fact that the parents were never home. At the same time, I was just a senior in high school. I didn't have much to do after school either. I didn't have hobbies. I didn't play a sport. So I had all the time in the world to babysit for their kid and house sit for them. This baby was only 1 year old. Since the baby was so young, I had to keep eyes on it at all times. They had this big pool area, and they said that if I ever wanted to go swimming, I could, and there was a floaty for the baby. One day while I was house sitting and babysitting for them, I went in the pool and I put the baby on the floaty thing. Somehow I forgot that that baby existed. I felt something in the bottom of my feet at the pool. It was like slippery, so I kicked it out the way because I thought it was a toy. And then when I turn around me, I see that the baby is not on the floaty. I look down and I see this tiny human sunk in the water, like for part 2. This is part 2 of how I almost drowned someone's baby. But when this was happening, I was on my phone, so I was distracted. I looked down in the pool and I see that the baby is drowning. I don't really know how to explain the way that my heart skipped a beat at this exact moment. Like, my heart was beating regularly, and then all of a sudden it skipped 2 beats at a time. My ass was in my forehead. Immediately dived down into the pool, took out the baby, but the baby was suffocating. Now listen, I never did CPR, but God blessed me with those skills in that very moment. I was able to keep myself calm and did CPR on the baby and was able to get it to breathe again. I did not tell nobody shit about this. I didn't tell the parents. The baby is fine. I really should have told the parents, because what if it did cause a health issue? But from what I've seen, the baby's fine. Yeah, I didn't tell them what happened, but I quit babysitting because I felt guilty. They haven't said anything about their baby dysfunctioning, so the baby is fine. Just because of this, I pulled myself out of babysitting, and I'll never babysit ever again because I'm clearly not responsible enough. This is gonna be a story time about how my whole school went on a manhunt for one student. Why was they looking for his ass? I'm gonna get into it. Let me clarify right now that I am a victim. I do not want nobody in the comments saying, why didn't you do this? Why did you do this? It could have been me. It could have been any of us. That's why I minded my business throughout this whole thing. So I got to school a little late that day, but when I got to my class, I could tell there was a little tension in the air. I didn't know what it was, whether it was a teacher having a problem with a student or a student having a problem with another student. I just knew that the energy was off. So I'm sitting down in class minding my business per usual. The next thing I see is my teacher try to grab this one boy's phone. He immediately snatches it off his desk before she can grab it. That's when they get into this little tug of war type of thing. But the next thing you know, everybody sees this boy mollywop the teacher in the stomach. She falls and he runs out the classroom. Some kids started laughing and thought it was funny until the teacher wasn't waking up. This is when things get bad, like for part 2. This is going to be part 2 of the time my whole school went on a manhunt for one student. So like I said, this kid punched his teacher and ran out the classroom, and the teacher wasn't waking up anymore. So as you can imagine, a room full of drained high school students who just woke up a few hours ago, we were all kind of just like looking around at each other. No one thought to, I don't know, tell somebody that this shit happened. Like, were we silent? Or were we silenced? I blame the school system for making school so early because I feel like once you get to school, your cognitive functions get out the window. So I really try hard not to feel guilty about this, and I try not to blame my other classmates for not doing anything as well. And then eventually, like 5 minutes passed, and then we're like, okay, maybe we should check if she's awake at least. That's when one of the students get up and start to check. Well, they check and they say that she's not breathing. It obviously set something off in our brains, like this is an emergency, something needs to happen now. That's when a bunch of us ran to the office and they called the ambulance, like for part 3. This is going to be part 3 of the time my whole school went on a manhunt for one student. We went to the office and told them how the kid punched the teacher and the teacher wasn't waking up. Immediately, a bunch of staff ran to the class to see where the teacher was and what was going on with her. I didn't personally run to the office. When I say we, I mean my classmates. So I was still in the classroom when all the staff ran in. So they told everybody to exit the classroom, and everybody needed to get out of the classroom because they needed to give her some privacy and examine her. So we were all standing outside of my classroom, and it was like 30 kids. The teacher that was next door to us was really close to my teacher. They would always talk in the hallways. They had their lunch periods together, their study study periods together, and her door was wide open. Why didn't we go in there and tell her what happened? Honestly, like I said, we were high school students. It was really early. So she came out once she saw all of us standing outside in the hallway, and she was like, what's going on? Once we told her that a kid punched the teacher and that she passed out, her face drops, and she announced that the teacher was pregnant. Mind you, nobody knew this because she hadn't announced it herself yet. This is when they called the ambulance, like for part 3. This is going to be part 4 of the time my whole school went on a manhunt for one student. So now everybody knows that this teacher who is passed out on the floor and is not waking up is pregnant. That's when they decided to call the ambulance. I'm guessing they didn't call the ambulance earlier because they were waiting to see if they could try to get her to wake up. They went ahead and put the whole school on lockdown. Nobody was allowed to leave their class, and me and my classmates went into the teacher's classroom next to us. We were sitting in the classroom for like a couple hours, and throughout these couple of hours, what we were hearing outside of the classroom was complete chaos. There was a bunch of cops, a bunch of cop radios, there was dogs. We heard a bunch of yelling and running, and that's when the announcements go off once again. And that's when they announced that they're looking for that kid and they can't find him anywhere in the school. And they're gonna let the day go back to normal, but if anybody sees him, to report it. At this point, everyone at school already knew what happened because of social media, and once they heard on the announcements that they had permission to look for the kid, lots of kids took that as this is a scavenger hunt. When I say lots of kids, I mean the whole school, like for part 5. This is going to be part 5 of the time our whole school went on a manhunt for one student. But once they announced to report the kid who punched the pregnant teacher in the stomach if we see him throughout the school day, lots of kids took that as find him and bring him to me and started hunting him down. I mean, like, as they should. So anyways, yeah, complete chaos broke out. As soon as that bell rang, child, you would be able to leave school and nobody would notice. Everybody was in the hallways. People were looking under the stairwells. They were checking in the janitor's closet, opening up doors that they shouldn't be opening. And with everybody looking for this kid, we found him pretty fast. We did what the police and police dogs couldn't do. This kid was hiding in the band room under the band instructor's desk. They found him and arrested him on school property. We got word that that teacher did in fact lose her baby, but she was okay and she was alive, but she chose not to work at that school again. But she never came back, and I don't know, I think that kid is still in prison. So I said I'd be sharing more stories of things that happened to me while I was younger that I've kept secret for my entire life and haven't told anybody, so here's another story. Fair warning, this video might be a little triggering. I was really young at the time. I don't exactly remember what age. I was around 8 or 13 years old. Me and my friends were going to this haunted maze, and it was around Halloween time. It was one of my friend's parents that was taking us there, and it was a group of 5 or 6 of my friends. While me and my friends were going through this maze, we were standing in a line, and I was standing in the very back. So while we were walking, I ended up tripping on my shoelace, and I fell to the side where there was curtains. It was the curtains where the workers would pop out and try to scare you. When I fell, I tried to yell for my friends, but because of the sound effects of the maze, they couldn't hear me. And by the time I got up, they were gone. So I started walking, and I eventually got to a place where you could only go right or left, and I went left. And once I went left, I ended up in a circular room where there was 5 passageways. But there was also a group of teenage boys, and I didn't even see them at first. All I know is I turned around and got grabbed, like for part 2. This is part 2 of the time I got lost in a haunted maze. Like I said, I lost track of my friends, and I was looking for my friends, and I ended up in a part of the maze where there was all these guys that I didn't even see at first. All I know is I turned around and I got grabbed. So I screamed. I was super young at the time. I was defenseless. I didn't know what to do. Those guys seemed like they were around their teenage years, and they were laughing and making a joke out of it. One of them was laughing, and they told their friend, grab her legs. And so the friend grabbed my legs, and they were tugging me and pulling me, and then they started to pull my pants down. Panic was filling over my body. I couldn't even scream. When you're young, you'd always think you know what to do at these moments, but you really don't. You just freeze up. And that's exactly what I did. I just froze up. But thankfully, as soon as I felt my pants starting to get pulled down, another group of people turned the corner, and that's when the boys dropped me and ran, like for part 3. This is going to be part 3 of the time I got lost in a haunted maze. Like I said, another group of people started to turn the corner. That's when the boys dropped me and they ran. Those group of people didn't really get to see what was going on, so they asked me if I was okay. I told them that I was good. Me being super young and scared, I didn't really want to tell them what happened. My parents were also really iffy about me going out, and I didn't want there to be a situation that would make them not trust me anymore. So they started to walk me out of the maze, you guys. And I'm guessing we were nearing towards the exit. But as we were nearing towards the exit, I completely forgot about the boys. I had realized that I didn't have a bracelet that I was wearing. Me being young and trying not to annoy the people that found me and were helping me get out of the maze, I wanted to turn around, but I didn't want to tell them that I needed to turn around because I lost something. So I ran back. As I was running back, trying to find this bracelet in this maze, I had ran into the same group of teenage boys who assaulted me, like for part 4. This is going to be part 4 of the time I got lost in a haunted maze. I had lost something in the maze, and once I ran back to find it, I had ran into the same group of teenage boys who assaulted me. Like I said previously, I had completely forgotten about these boys. How did I forget about these boys? I'm not sure. I was very young, very dumb, and I wish I wasn't scared at the time to tell those people who were walking me out of the maze that I had lost something, because I'm sure they would have been nice enough to help me find it. But I was scared. I didn't want to annoy them. So as soon as I saw those boys, I was thinking life or death. Why was I thinking life or death? I'm not sure, but that was my instinct. So I took it upon myself to do the dash, and I ran and ran and ran, and I did not look back. I didn't remember which way to go out of the maze, but I somehow did make it out. Thankfully, the Lord was really watching over me that day. And once I got out, I was screaming for my friends. I was screaming their names. I was looking for them everywhere. Eventually, I found my friends, and I just hugged one of them and started bawling.